This meeting is being recorded.
Correct.
Do you lead, Sebastian, or do you prefer?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can probably start. Topic we wanted to discuss. Second. Share my screen. So, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the topic we want to discuss was the current status of the ported Fortran web page. As you can see, you did a good job already porting the main page. If we compare this with the current default Fortran lang, we at least have all the information available. Might be a bit where we have to work on the fonts. A section which we have to care about is currently news, which are not yet ported. At least we have all the categories available. Yeah. I think the news so far are already ported over. So this pretty much matches from the features that we have. And we also started with the learn category. And as you can see, most of the things are there. Yeah, we need some polishing with the style. All the things that are not yet ported, like the packages, this should be more or less the style which we have here. As you can see, it's currently a bit broken due to the deployment. Because we are first deploying the the Jekyll page and then overwriting it with the afterwards overwriting it with the sphinx page. I think this messes up a bit of the CSS classes because then there are multiple and they don't match. But I think we have now most of the categories. So at least we have a basic structure. They need a bit more styling so they can match what we had before. But more or less, we have the information in Sphinx now.
It's looking good. Mike, one question is, how closely do you want to match the new page in style to the old page?
I think we don't get a one-to-one correspondence on this. Most important is that we get all the information, and it should at least look reasonably well.
Are you at least attempting to keep all of the different pieces in roughly the same place?
Exactly. So as you can see, there is probably some work which still has to go into getting this links to look like those buttons, which is possible with the Sphinx design. Not sure whether we can actually have this alternating background colors here. But more or less, yeah. I'm not sure. Not all. I think the tutorials are not done yet. They are still, I think, from the original format. But this is the overall structure we have. And now we're looking for feedback, whether this is the right direction to go, or if you want should change something on this.
I think it's looking pretty good. That's really good head start. That's really quick progress, I think.
Yes, I agree. It seems that the content is there, and now it's more polishing a bit, and yeah. making the site beautiful, but that's really a good progress. So, and I don't think that we need 101 comparison with the old one if the content is there. But yeah, that's really nice.
Same. I also think that the CSS should not be that much of a pain to port, right? Because we technically have a CSS from the current configuration. So worst case now you can just export them and import them directly. I'm not sure if it's we've written them explicitly. I haven't looked, but
yeah, the problem with the Jekyll page.
I was reverse engineering them for the modern Fortran extension and made them into like PNGs. So like I think we have them somewhere. But yeah, it's not very good. Sorry.
I think the most problem is that we don't really have for all the Jekyll pages a clear template to port. Most of this is just plain HTML. And now we're trying to reconstruct this in Myst Markdown. So we don't have this fine-grained control which you would have in case of actually writing the HTML. But I think we're getting there. I mean, especially the main page, we are able to do this if we can figure out how to apply this efficiently for all the pages. Then I think we are quite close to the style which we want to have for our page, for our page.
I had only two questions with regard to this. One being dark theme, if that's on the books, and the second one being about mobile devices and with smaller displays. Is that auto-generated, or do we set the layout for that?
There's something, I don't know how good this works. It usually can check this quite easily if you just pull this together. Then it reformats, and we can see whether other pages also format well.
You can also do it with the inspector tool in Chrome. You can set different font layouts, but I was curious if we're doing some optimization, because I think Sphinx allows that, to set grid layouts.
I think we're starting from is the PyData theme, and we are adjusting this. And I think most of the markup blocks are done with strings design.
Yeah.
And those have some potential for adjustment.
Awesome.
I think in any case, we will be more mobile friendly than the old page, because this doesn't have a special mode for this. Regarding dark mode, I'm not sure. So there is a Sphinx theme which has this built in. However, we are not using this one. There's this Fluor theme which can switch to dark mode, but I think the PyData theme doesn't allow this yet.
Because there are many extensions that do, they convert your web pages to dark themes, so like Dark Reader. And if I check it right now on my computer, it looks relatively okay. So we could just, if something does allow for a second configuration, which is a dark theme, what's the web page? We could just plug in the configuration settings of the dark theme extension.
Yeah,
and get the colors. Yeah, I mean, if I can share my screen for you to see, if you're interested. Let's see. That should be it, right? Second, share. Yeah. So this is how it looks by default. Okay. Which I think it's reasonable. Reasonable-ish. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Then, of course, thanks for the feedback. If you have anything in particular or any detail, best just post it in the thread, and then we can discuss it further. If there's some detail which you noticing later while browsing the new page. So anything you will note on this is much appreciated. Otherwise, I can just repeat. Really great work so far, Haniel.
Sorry.
Otherwise, I can just repeat it. It looks like a really good start. So great work now.
Thanks. Sir, I've also completed the compiler page, compiler section, and my currently planned theme is like detailed timeline is that by 20th I will be completing all those mini tutorials, all those book sections in which the links are broken. After that, sir, I'm planning by 5th of July, sir, I will be completing those packages section and the community section with some interactive community pages, sort of like what regarding a specific, we would have some graphs or plots, interactive graphs or plots that contribute, will be showing details about the contributors. Secondly, sir, I have also planned regarding the internationalization, sir. For that, initially we'll be using Transifex for generating into 7 different languages, and then we can use the community feedback for making some specific changes onto it, sir, like correcting the mistranslations and all of them, sir. And regarding the dark theme, sir, I'm thinking maybe it is possible, sir. I would have to look into it, sir, basically for that. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, nice. Are there other comments for that? I think Daniel did a very good job. So again, good job. Sebastian, do you want to move to the next one?
Quickly check.
Oh yeah, the item was proposed by Giannis about modern Fortran release.
Yeah. Let me check what I said. Modern Fortran release. Okay. Yeah. So we released the version 3.1 or 3 point something for modern Fortran finally, which is the big release since we migrated to Fortran Lang. I think the feedback in general is positive, with the exception of a bug or two for Intel compilers. And I would be interested in seeing closer integration with the rest of the Fortran Lang project, specifically with FPM as a building resource, given that it's so intuitive to use. Yeah, so my idea was to set up a little roadmap for the priorities for developing the extension. I don't know how much time I'll have in the next months because I'm finishing up my PhD. But assuming that I do have time, I was thinking of doing the FPM integration and possibly Cmake integration, and seeing how that goes and how that's perceived by the users. There are some other stuff that I have been thinking in the back of my head. The one is support for FYPP, like the preprocessor that we have, like for stdlib, which I have given it a shot like a while back. It was just I don't remember exactly what the problems were, but there were some tricky situations arising from that. And then a low-hanging fruit for the extension development is translating the settings, so language localizations. We can offload that to Google Translate, or I'm sure Microsoft has something that's automated, but it's probably better if native language speakers did the translation. So I am Greek. I don't think VS Code supports Greek. So I suspect we would be looking for the standard stuff. So traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, Japanese, German, French. What am I missing? And there are 16 languages, I think, that are supported. And if we could have people from the community help with that. But that is one more thing. And the last bit is a configuration file, either what the FPM uses for configuration or some JSON, preferably some JSON file that you can load settings to your build system, to VS Code, and to your language server, because the idea behind it is you implement file watchers. So you have a configuration file where your language server watches and VS Code watches, and your build system can watch too. And whenever you change that, the changes propagate throughout your editor environment. Yeah, so these are the ideas that I have. Hopefully, they will raise the popularity of the language a bit, like get us out there. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else for VS Code. The other stuff is for the lecture series, which maybe we should not necessarily record. It's not anything controversial, it's just a bit weird. Yeah, that's all I have.
Yes, maybe we can discuss a bit VS Code. And are there some comments? Are there some people using?
Yeah, but so I haven't started using the VS Code yet. I've been using Atom, and so now I'm forced to switch since Atom is going to be shut down. But so I did write a plugin for Atom for using FPM at one point, and the user interface that I went with was basically kind of using their like build targets extension. So it looked something similar to that. And so I just had, at the time, I just had 3 build targets that just mirrored FPM build, FPM run, and FPM test. And then had options or settings that you could change that corresponded directly to the flags available in FPM for those different commands. So I would suggest that's probably a reasonable place to start for FPM integration. And the next iteration that I had in mind for that was going to be either execute FPM to get a list of the available targets, or read the manifest file, the fpm.toml file, to get a list for those. So you could so not only would you just have FPM build, run, and test as available targets, but you could say FPM test one of my specific tests, or FPM run some specific example, or something like that. So you could have the various targets available if your project had more than just one. So that was the direction I was headed when I was going to start developing an FPM plugin for an editor. So that's a direction to start thinking about, at least. The next question I had was, now, what was the next thing on your list? Because I had a comment about that, or a question.
FYPP.
The preprocessor. So how do we handle files? How does the editor handle files that have preprocessor stuff in it? Presumably it's not executing the preprocessor and then passing that to the compiler, or are we?
So currently we don't have any support for the FYPP. We have normal linting support, which means that you just invoke the compiler with a bunch of compiler flags, and you get the diagnostics from whatever output you choose, and then you can parse those diagnostics into diagnostic VS Code diagnostic variables. and that gives you all the, you can parse the range of the variable where the error is, code actions to fix that, supposedly. So that is how we're currently doing it.
Okay.
The,
So is the
what I
idea
recall
then
being the problem? Yeah, it was the expansion of the preprocessor. That's what I recall being the problem, because your line numbers change.
Yep.
And you want your diagnostics on the pre-processed on the pre-processed file, not the post-processed file.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like writing. You don't want the intermediate state, effectively.
Yeah. Well, there's the additional challenge of recognizing the file extension, because if you're using preprocessor, probably your file extension is not just .f90 anymore, along with syntax highlighting, because now you've got preprocessor directives that are in the way. How does that affect the syntax highlighting?
I think the syntax highlighting is a mess, and at some point, if we ever decide to be serious about it, we're gonna have to rewrite something in a programming language rather than what currently we're using TextMate grammar, which is just a bunch of regular expressions scoped. I've rewritten most of it from scratch. So it was based on like a very old Atom extension, I think. But I have added support for the semantics that correspond to at least some of the semantics that correspond to the FYPP. I have no idea how it's pronounced, so I'm going to be spelling it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it shouldn't be that bad. If it has custom keywords or like some custom syntax, probably it will fail. But if I remember correctly, the regular expressions for preprocessor in general are the set of instructions are very small and very simple. It is start from the beginning of the hash of the pound sign and go to the end of the line. So it's something like this, how you scope your tokens. So it doesn't really matter in that sense. So things will look probably nice or nice-ish. What was the first thing? It was the syntax highlighting. Linting is going to be a challenge.
Yep.
Regarding the line numbers, there shouldn't be a problem, because FYPP is able to produce line markers, which a compiler can then translate in the error message to the original file.
So should we be, so technically the order of operation that should happen is you call FYPP, you take the document generated from that, you capture it in stream, you pass it in your compiler in a stream, and then you fetch diagnostics from that and serve them on the original file. So you need that map, which I am almost certain that FYPP serves, like that mapping from the generated document to the original. What I was uncertain about, what I don't think is currently possible, is feeding from standard input to a compiler. That's the thing so we might have to create temp files.
Yeah, actually, this is possible.
Yeah,
I mean,
it depends on the compiler, but I think most of them have the capability of reading from standard in.
Yeah. You can connect them either via pipe or something like this.
Okay. And for the extension side of things, I don't think the file extension is a problem. We can set whatever extensions we want. And we can do it on the fly. Like I said, we don't have you can highlight on the fly. So that won't be that much of an issue. And also we can regular expression for the file expression.
Okay. And then my question, I had more of a comment about the like settings. We explicitly did carve out a section in the fpm.toml file for other programs to use. So it would be an option to put some of the settings for the editor extensions in there. And that gives us a capability that I think we want, which is a per project level settings. So you can have your user level settings, and then a per project can override some of those.
Exactly. That is the general idea, because language server stuff in general are project specific, and language servers are not perfect. So sometimes you have to give them, especially for preprocessor stuff. I'm fixing that very slowly for TLS, but until it's fixed, you have to pass in your preprocessor macros if they don't get detected. So that has to be on a per project basis. Or it makes sense to be on a per project basis. I should be correct on that. Yeah, so that's awesome. The only other thing that I forgot to circle back on the FPM stuff. We would probably need to figure out how to build with pip, like how to publish like on PyPy rather than Conda, because it's a nightmare to set up Conda with VS Code. We would have to depend on the Python extension, and I really don't want to do that.
There are two options which we can try. We can set up a build which creates a Python script which adds an entry point which is called FPM, and then we just store the binary somewhere in the real and call it. This is like this Ninja Python distribution, the Cmake Python distribution are done. The alternative is to take the Conda feedstock and use this old Conda Press project and make out of the Conda feedstock real, which is possible. I don't know. I mean, it's abandoned for a while now, but it worked at least, and they did a lot of crazy stuff like making a wheel for OpenBLAS. So in principle, you can basically put almost everything in there. So it might work out of the box with FPM, good enough. But if it's not, then we probably have to write build files, which create a Python package, pull in an FPM binary, put it somewhere in this package, and then run it from a Python script. Problem is, I think this is also a problem with the Ninja one, because some options can't be mirrored by Python correctly. So especially the response file stuff. There we have to figure something out, but we can just ignore it for the start. And I think there was also one thing, we have to make a claim on the FPM name. I mean, if you want, go ahead, file a claim, and maybe CC a couple of people from the FPM development. We are aware this request is open, and we will see how it goes.
What I was thinking, I will do that. But what I was thinking is, we can to get things going for FPM, we can just write a little spawn script that just activates a Conda environment and then creates an FPM environment, and it activates it in your terminal. I don't know if that exposes FPM to your extension. It exposes it to the terminal, but I think it's sandboxed, so that might be a problem. That's why I don't want to deal with the Python extension, because I think they have a way of figuring these things out, which is not very intuitive. But if that works, that would be another solution. That would be the simplest one of the three. Yeah. And I think what Brad mentioned, the first bit of building the targets, we can already do. We can just ship they're called tasks in VS Code, building tasks, and we can send we can ship them. I can write I wrote it for someone the other day in FPM and posted on the discussion. It's effectively the same. So we can ship them with the extension, although there is a nicer way of doing it, which is how Cmake does it, and it's step 2. From the sidebar, you can figure out the targets and scan for compilers and different configurations. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So regarding the Cmake thing, you're talking about multiple configurations setup with Cmake.
Also multiple configurations. I can show you if you include the horrible code that you will see. Let me see. Okay, let me pull something up that is okay. Let me share my screen. This here.
I think because we have something like multiple configurations in FPM already with the profiles. And in principle, you can customize them by passing the flags. Only problem is that the build name which you get is it's a hash and it shouldn't be known. Basically, you shouldn't care. You should just ask FPM to run the binary, which I think is a problem if you want to run the binary with some runner, like a debugger.
Sorry guys, I crashed before. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that we in principle have with FPM multiple configurations available via profiles, and those can be customized by passing the flag argument. The only issue is that, as you noticed, that the build path is an internal detail composed of a hash. And usually you shouldn't care about the hash. However, if you're a build system, you might care. So what we could do is give FPM an option to report the full path.
Yeah, which is what we were discussing a couple of days ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, currently we can do something like FPM run and then list all targets. It would show you all the names it can run, but it wouldn't show you the full path to the binary, because this should stay an internal detail. But but we could maybe add an option to make this more explicit, and then you could use this information to register all the targets with the VS Code extension.
Okay, that sounds like a solution. I'm just trying to find something that actually demonstrates the Cmake stuff. Okay.
So there's a couple of options if you like need access to the executable. One is just have FPM. So with FPM, the way we've got the options is basically you can construct anything you want to put in. You construct the command line that you want FPM to execute. You can put anything you want in front of the executable by using the -- runner option. It just takes that whole string and sticks it in front of the name of the executable when it constructs the command line argument or the command line that it's going to execute. And then anything following the 2 dashes, it just takes that wholesale and puts it after the executable that it's going to run. So in theory, that's one way of executing some executable that FPM is built with some, run it with something or with particular arguments or what have you. So that's one option. Another option that I've used on occasion is I run FPM install and have it put the executable somewhere in my build folder that is now predictable. And then I can run that executable. Of course, then you have to make sure that you always run FPM install before you run that executable to make sure you have an up-to-date version. But that's you know.
Yeah,
Not
I think
terribly
for VS
complicated.
Code that is fine for VS Code because you have pre-launched tasks. So like it wouldn't matter. So how Cmake looks like? Okay, let's see if we're not gonna crash again. Desktop 2. Okay. Share. So how Cmake looks like is this. Usually it has a lot more stuff. And this is the thing that detects your compilers in your system. So technically you can allow it to scan for kits. And if I'm not sure exactly what I've done with this thing, with this project, but it should give me all the, on this side, it would give me all the build targets and all the configuration options. I could tweak things. Yeah, so like this is big project, whatever. This is obviously, this project is not very well, I haven't built it yet. So like it can detect something because I'm being lazy. But if I had done my job correctly, it would look normal. And you would see build targets, different compilations, run tests individually, I think, which is what we discussed. That is kind of what I was envisioning for VS Code, for FPM, sorry. And it is also able to set include paths for your C++ extension. Specifically, it's a configuration file that is placed in your in this directory. That's called C++ CPP properties, and it has all the stuff for linting and the language server, which is what I was discussing before. It doesn't have to be placed here for us. It can be anywhere. Yeah. That's just to give you an idea of what I was thinking at the very end of the as the ideal solution for FPM. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Yeah. Not sure what you think about that. It's maybe more work than we have free time to do, but
that always seems to be the case with open source software. There's always way more to do than you feel like you have time for. But I think you've got good ideas. You've got a good start on it. I'm excited to see what comes about when anybody has time to work on it.
Yeah, that is it. That's it. That's the important bit.
Yep.
I should stop procrastinating. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good. Looks nice. Thank you. So, Giannis, are there still some comments for Giannis on that? No. Otherwise, Giannis proposed to discuss about lectures, but
A quick question is,
yeah, go ahead.
do you want to discuss the standard lib stuff first? And then, we'll stop the recording and we can discuss the other things.
Yeah, we can discuss quickly standard lib. Yeah, thank you for the reminder. I will maybe share my screen then, if I can. Do you see it?
Yep, it's visible.
There are two things. First is this pull request by William on hash maps. It's quite a huge pull request. Yeah, there were two reviewers that approved, including myself, that approved the pull request, and I think now it's almost ready, or it's ready to be merged with the master, so that people could, or user could test it and play with it. And I'm just wondering if we still should wait for the reviewers, or if some of you want to review once more.
I would say let's go ahead and merge it.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So yeah, you had some comments.
Yeah, I think I was involved in the discussion early in the thread when discussing the API. I don't know if I have time for reviewing about 8,000 lines of code.
Yeah, it's quite huge indeed. So yeah, and on my side, I tested it. I play a bit with it, and I read the specs quite carefully, typos, and asking for quite a lot of changes.
I mean, having it in, especially having it in together with the linked list stuff, which we also were discussing, will allow us to build like general data structures. I would be really interested to use stdlib's hash maps and the lists to make an extension for Toml Fortran to directly produce stdlib conformant data.
Okay.
And I mean, this would work for all the JSON parsers and YAML parsers which are around. If they could build a bridge to stdlib to produce data in the stdlib format, we could just exchange it between all the IO libraries we have around. So at least for Toml Fortran, I'm going to try this. But I'm still missing the lists once the hash maps are in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, nice idea. So yeah, I will merge it, and then yeah, people can play with it. I think the best way to move forward with that. Yeah. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Have we tested the performance of the hash maps? Because hash maps in general start to become a lot slower accessing them and placing elements in them after a few million elements. So like you have to do things like a Knuth shuffle to have like a standard like a no and log n access time. So I would be curious to see if we run into these problems and if they're scalable effectively for large data.
I think William did a lot of tests on those, especially regarding performance. I remember that there were like extensive discussions about the hashing functions which are available and how they compare to each other and how their overall efficiency is. And I think he also includes speed tests for those hash maps.
Yeah, so for both the hash functions and here the hash maps, there are some in the test directory. There are some small programs for testing that and for testing the performance that reports. We have some performance measurement. So you may have a look on that if you want. Yeah, there are small tests, of course, not really extensive, but they are a good start, and yeah, it could be nice for yeah, to extend them also.
Okay.
But yeah, honestly, I didn't.
I was just curious about the performance.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have some ideas or yeah, if you want to test them, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the next one is about so in the specs there are a lot of small demo programs. Let's go of small examples. That is quite often that we see that some people find mistakes, and I found a few of them also in them, typos and wrong declaration and so on. So I wrote a small Photon program to extract all these small examples and to create a files. So in total, I extracted, I don't know, almost 200 examples from the specs, and I created a. I don't know if you can see that. No. I put all of them in this in the 3 test example, and I'll come back on that later with all a specific name, and for each markdown, for example, let's take this one, this small one. I remove them from the specs for the markdown files. I just include them using the fourth declaration, the fourth statement. So the website is still the same, except that all programs are now separately saved. The nice thing is that by doing that, we can check if all the programs can be compiled. It was not the case. There were a lot of mistakes that I had to solve. So yeah, my question here is, is it a good idea to do something like that as a first step? And if yes, what is the structure of these things that could be used, to make them useful also for later?
I would nest them a bit more. So right now they're all in one directory, but maybe just group them with the respective module they're describing. So if you have something for the check in the error module, then put it in the under examples error demo check 1.
Yeah, that's true. I could make the directories with the same names as in the specs.
And the other thing is,
Yeah.
Is the program supposed to exit with successfully or unsuccessfully? We could then also split this into valid and invalid. Especially for the checks, I think I see a couple of them which are going to fail.
Yes, that's true.
So if we have all of them, it would be nice to have a way to just say, to make them actual tests, have Cmake run them. However, then we have to know whether they should be successful or not. And maybe we can also, in the future, include them in the FPM distribution. So somebody's downloading stdlib, they can run all the examples.
Yes, yes, indeed. You wrote some. You mentioned it in one of your comments, but then I was not sure. I didn't know that. So is the directory just called example, and FPM will find that by himself, or?
Exactly. If there's a directory called example, all the programs inside are automatically detected by the program finder, and they create implicit targets. And then you can just run them with FPM run, I think -- example -- all. Then we're going to run all the examples, all 200 in one go.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah.
So we should deploy them. And we also should make sure that they are all and exit successfully, which can be a bit difficult for the error handling, which should stop. But maybe we can figure something out. Or we just exclude them explicitly from the distribution. If there's something which doesn't currently fit the FPM run strategy, we can always remove it in the end.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Have a look in the CI directory. There's a FPM deployment script. Adding a new directory there to copy it over to example should be easy.
Yeah, that's not the problem.
And there's also a list of files which should be deleted from a distribution. So I think you call it pruning.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
And then we can sort everything out, which currently, if you would run all the examples, lead to failures.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, but for Cmake, I need to keep. Do I need to keep the same structure? So test example for Cmake.
What you can do is basically you need a list of all the files, which I think you can do with a blob, but I don't know if it is a good idea. And then you can just loop over all files and then implicitly create executables. However, I don't know how well Cmake does compiling 200 small examples, linking against a static library like stdlib, and then running them as tests. This might become a huge build directory.
Yeah. So yeah, it needs some more tests and some more play. Yeah. But yeah, I will continue that and see how it goes then.
But I don't think this affects the current status of this PR. I would be happy to see if you group them, but other than that, I think this can move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think anything you can do to make sure your examples are valid Fortran code that at least compiles is a good idea. Having them be in your test suite, if they're just meant to be like documentation examples, having them be part of your test suite is less important, I think. So I wouldn't be too concerned about making all of that work if it's a lot of effort or there's complexities that make things tricky or what have you. If it's easy and makes provides some value, then I wouldn't say don't do it. But if it's hard, it's not urgent or anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I will see how it goes and what are the possibilities. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Due to the time, I propose that we move to next topic proposed by Giannis.
All right, yeah, we'll stop the recording now.